What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is What's Next Podcast. I'm your host, Mario Maitland. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure you give us a follow. We're back with yet another great episode. As I do every episode, I've been doing it for my past 3 or 4 episodes. I've been working on my rapping skills, and I know a lot of my fans and everybody from the audience has been saying it's not really rapping. It's more like Dr. Seuss. It's more like I'm doing poetry. So I'm going to give it to you because I have to, because I've been doing it for the last few guests, just to introduce our very special guest for today. So don't judge me, by the way. Don't judge me. It's just the way we do things.
I'm proud of you for trying.
I got you. So here goes. Jack Givens in the spotlight, shining so bright from the court to the mic. He's ready to ignite a champion's journey, a story to inspire. Tune in now. Let's talk about the guy we all admire, Mr. Jack Givens. Welcome to the show, my man.
One of the best introductions I've ever had, man.
Thank you
so
much.
much.
I don't get that a lot.
Appreciate
I don't get that a lot. So let me ask you this, man. Husband, father, mentor, businessman, entrepreneur, Kentucky legend. I mean, I can give you so many different labels, my man. What do you label yourself? What would you call yourself, Jack?
Well, I would probably want to start out with Christian, number one, because that is one of the many things that means so much to me.
Absolutely.
After that, I would go with family. My wife and I have been together 38 years, almost 39 this year. So that's been wonderful. And now I'm grandfather because I get to chase the grandkids around. So with everything you mentioned, those things are probably the most to me at this stage of my life.
For sure. I remember talking to you a little bit off camera. And I was like, the first time I've ever heard of Jack Givens, I was a senior. No, I was a junior, I'm sorry, in University of Kentucky. And I'm taking a history class, race and sports. And I'm constantly hearing Jack Givens, over and over. Jack Givens, Jack Givens. My professor, shout out to Dr. White, always talked a lot of great things about you and what the impact that you've had. So me just being able to sit across from you now, 2 years later, it's just been a humbling experience for me. So I'm excited to get this episode underway. Shout out to Old North Bar and Kitchen, which where we're at. Very, very, very cool spot.
Yes,
I'm a huge fan of this.
Yes, it is.
In Gray Line Station, you guys got to check it out. They got beer, wine, cocktails, along with all other traditional foods. They host all kinds of awesome events, live events, trivia, yoga. I mean, they definitely do a lot of different things here. So I definitely want to tip my hat off to Old North Bar and Kitchen. You guys thank you for giving us this opportunity. We deeply appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's get into it, man. Let's talk about your story in general. We got you here in Lexington. You grew up not too far from here. Talk to me about your humbling beginnings. Like, what was that like growing up in Lexington, Kentucky?
Well, I'm one of 10 kids. I mean, we had a big family.
A big family.
Most of those years, particularly the younger years, my mom was the hero of my life because she was the one that sacrificed and worked so hard to raise us. Many jobs she had early on when we were really young, including with my grandmother. They would clean homes for people and watch their kids, pretty much raise some of those kids that they were in charge of. Yeah. So that was a really good part of my younger days. I mean, my siblings and I, number one, we loved each other.
Cool.
We didn't have much. The best thing about that was we didn't know we didn't have much.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Because that's the way it was in the
that's
neighborhood.
Normal to you. Exactly.
Yeah. We grew up right here at North Aspendale, and all the families, all the people in that neighborhood were going through a lot of the same things as we were. So it was a humble beginning, but I wouldn't want it any other way, man. I tell you, it was a wonderful way to grow up. It helps me now to appreciate every little thing I have, every opportunity I get. Praise God for that. And I'm just, it was a great way to grow up. I walked these streets right around Gray Line here. I mean, we grew up here. Of course, I moved from downtown Lexington to the north side
He
of
was telling
town,
me.
which
Yeah.
is about halfway in between both areas. So these were my stomping grounds, man, when I was growing up, and
I bet
it was all fun.
it's a fun feeling to be back here and be
Oh
able
yeah,
to take it
oh
all
yeah.
in, man. Growing up, did you have any role models or anything like that inspired you?
Well, my role models were basically the people in my family and in my neighborhood.
That's awesome.
I mean, for most of the time when I was really young, we didn't have a TV, so I couldn't sit there on Sundays. I mean, it's not like it is now where there's a basketball game or sporting event on TV every
So
day.
different. Yep.
So I we were outside. We
Yep.
were out playing. We'd go to Duncan Park and the park in Espandale and Douglas Park, and
Yeah, Douglas
you
Park.
know that we spent the time that we had in those places. Of course, we didn't have the video games and all the other stuff young people have nowadays.
No, that's
but
good. You gotta get
that's
outside.
a good thing.
Yeah.
No question about it. We cherish those days. But you know, my mother, my grandmother, my aunts and uncles who
Yeah.
made sure I ate even when I didn't know where I was going to eat or
Exactly.
what was coming. Those people were my heroes because
sure.
they were the ones who loved me, cared about me, and provided for me. So I cherish those relationships the most.
Basketball. Now, you said you spend a lot of time outside playing, and
Mhm.
whether I'm guessing you played multiple sports growing up.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how basketball came into play. Was there any other sports that you could have played?
Well, I played baseball. Never played football. I didn't like getting hit, and
Me either.
I didn't want it. I didn't want any part of that, man. That's, no matter how hard some of my coaches at Bryan Station in middle school, which then was junior high school, no matter how much they wanted me to play,
Not doing it.
I'm not going there. So, but I did play baseball, and I really enjoyed playing baseball. Played at Woodland Park. Played
Yes.
at.
I didn't know that was still around.
Oh, that was there, man.
Wow.
That was the park. I remember walking from the neighborhood. We'd go through, and we'd get down to
Sheesh,
Woodland Park.
okay.
We'd stop right there on Main Street, and we didn't have. We'd stop at Long John
Yeah.
Silver's,
Oh boy.
and we didn't have enough money for the fish and chips, but we had a quarter or something like that where we could buy some of those little crumbles that
Yeah.
come off of the fish. I mean, we'd stop there, man, and that was the treat of my life right there,
Yeah.
getting to stop there and get some of the Long John Silver, some of those little crumbles that came off of them, but they were so good. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we walked there at Castlewood Park. We
I
played
know
baseball
Castlewood,
there
yeah.
and had a good time. And then again, the parks around the neighborhood where I grew up were great. But baseball was one of those things. Didn't cost a lot of money. We didn't have to have a lot of gloves because we could just change them around when
Yeah.
one team was batting, the other team had the gloves.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
we would go that way. But we also played a lot of basketball. I mean, and those were the days.
You were in a basketball city.
Yeah, and in those days, man, you had when I got to play, because when I first started, all the older kids were playing, so I didn't get to play much. But when we did get to play, if we were going to play more than one game,
Yeah.
we had to win.
I see. You got to stay on there.
We
Right?
got to stay up because there
Gotta
might be
stay on the
10
court.
teams, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but
Yeah.
nothing, no surprise. Six
Teams waiting on the
would
sideline.
be waiting to get that next shot.
Yep.
And if you lost, you'd fall in the back of
You're
that.
going home.
unless you could beg somebody to pick me up, man. Let me play. Let the guy
I know
have
what
the
you
lead.
mean. I know what you mean.
But yeah, those were the days, man. I mean, nothing better than growing up, and I wish kids would spend more time outside, playing games. Great exercise, obviously, but man, you build a lot of basic fundamentals in life, that competition, the right way to win, the right way to lose.
Teaches you a lot.
I mean, we learned that, and we learned it the hard way sometime, but those were great days. Yeah.
For sure. And then the memories as well. You get a lot of lasting memories. My question for you, I have to ask you this, because growing up, you're starting to make some noise. Everybody's starting to get to know Jack Givens in his high school days. Why did you decide to come to Kentucky? Because at that time, and you're going to talk a little bit about it. At that time, Kentucky wasn't necessarily known to African American players and having players like that.
Yeah.
Why though? Why did you decide to take that?
Well, yeah, there were a few reasons. Some of them are kind of practical. Some of them were just uh, the way things were. Uh, um, Number one, you're right. It wasn't when I was younger. I'm talking about, you know, really formative years where you, if you are going to have sports heroes,
Right.
where those kind of heroes would be formed. Uh, the University of Kentucky wasn't even on my radar because I just didn't have anybody at Kentucky who I could look at and say, man, that's me out there. You know, there was nobody there.
Yeah.
The other thing was, right before me, there were so many great basketball players. I'm talking about those teams at Dunbar High School and at Douglas High School. Man, those guys could play circles around me. Yep. And those guys didn't even get considered to play at the University of Kentucky. So growing up here, that pretty much wasn't an option for me in my mind. Yeah. I was going to go to, if I played ball in college, I was going to go to Kentucky State University because that's what we did back in those days, you know.
Right.
But as I started playing at Bryan Station, I started getting better and started getting more interest. It was pretty neat because every game we played, whether it was here in Lexington,
right,
some of the surrounding counties that we played high school ball against, whether it was in Owensboro, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, whether it was in Hazard, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Everywhere I went, there was blue and white in the stands.
Can't avoid it.
And I mean, I got recruited every night we had a game.
Wow. Because
we would go in, and from the time we got off the bus to the time we left, there was people screaming and shouting, "We want you, we want you." So
that sounds about right. That sounds like Big Blue Nation.
Yeah, it really was. So that was eye-opening for me because all of the stuff I had heard was that the response and the reception wouldn't be like what I found it to be.
You know, it was a little surprising to you.
So when the opportunity came to make that decision, against a lot of people who grew up in my neighborhood, I'm talking about a bunch. At the church I went to, Greater Liberty Baptist Church, Reverend Lee and James Lee, who went to Kentucky with me from right here in Lexington. That was his dad's church. I grew up in that church. But a lot of the guys in there, man, the deacons, the guys who had been around, they didn't want us going to Kentucky. So it was a tough decision to make. My mom didn't want me going to Kentucky, and I respected her and what she had to say more than anybody. But she left the decision up to me, and we decided to do it. And obviously, I'm glad I did. The rest is kind of history, as they say. So, but it wasn't an easy decision.
It sounds like it wasn't. If everybody's telling you no, and you like, I guess you go with your gut feeling in terms of what you wanted to do.
Sometimes you have to do that. For
sure. And was it the fans that you would say that really led you on to get to go to Kentucky to give Kentucky a chance?
Yeah, the fans had a lot to do with it. A lot to do with it. I got to know Coach Hall, particularly in my junior and senior year of high school. I got to know him. And he made it known he wanted me at Kentucky. But without the fans, that was his job to get players. Yeah. So I had to separate his job from the person himself. And as it turned out, he was a good man and really was sincere and wanted me there.
Funny story, and I believe I read it online, Jack. You were watching the 1966 championship game between Texas Southern and Kentucky.
Right.
You weren't rooting for Kentucky. You were rooting for Texas Southern.
Everybody in my neighborhood was. Listen, I mean, it was amazing. Like I say, we didn't have a TV, but one of my neighbors right across the walk from me, Mr. Warren Wynn and Miss Dorothy Wynn, they had TVs. Yep. And Stephen and Stephanie, who were my age, they were twins, and Bubby, who was a little bit older than me. You know, we were all buddies, man. We grew up together. And he would pull that TV out on the porch, and we'd sit there, get our chairs, our blankets, sit on the grass, whatever we had to do
to watch it.
Well, we watched that game. We watched when the first man took the step on the moon. You know, we would sit out there, man. Sorry,
you're fine. You're fine, man.
But we would sit out and it would be a community thing, man. And we'd watch that, and those were
Memories.
great days, man.
Memories,
But
man.
no, I didn't want Kentucky to win. My goodness, 5 black guys for starting on one team and
Yeah,
5
yeah.
white guys starting on the other. And
Yeah.
we grew up 10 minutes, 15 minutes from the university.
sure.
But yeah, I'm glad the team won. That's for sure.
I'm going to show you a picture,
Mhm.
and it's on my screen right now for the fans to see. You're going to just give me your overall feeling of what was going through your mind when you had this picture.
James and I, we were big buddies, and I started Henry Clay with him, so we almost played high school basketball
Oh, wow.
together. But I changed to Bryan. We moved to a different district, and I changed to Bryan Station. And that tie I had on, man. Listen, that was the way it was in the day, man. I wasn't the only one that wore ties like that. And it's pretty funny because I tell people, they say, "Man, what's going on with that
The tie?
I mean, what's up with that?"
So
And
the tie, man.
I tell people the story I tell. It's not true, but the story I tell is that James and I, on the night before we had the press conference,
Right.
we went to a restaurant here in Lexington. Used to be here in Lexington. A lot of people remember it. Cliff Hagan Steakhouse.
Okay.
Cliff Hagan played at Kentucky, All-American athletics director. He was really good guy, but he had this steakhouse.
Yeah.
Prime rib steak was that thick, man. I mean, they say 16 ounces, and it was closer to 20 ounces. So we had gone there the night before, and was the first fancy restaurant I went to. I mean, where you sit down and tablecloths and these napkins, cloth napkins, not at McDonald's where you get the paper. And I tell people that tie was the napkin I had that night at the restaurant. Yeah, that's what I tell them. I said that was my napkin, and I was so impressed with this cloth napkin, I picked it up and took it with me, and I made it a tie and wore it the next day.
Can't blame you.
Yeah, but that's
blame you.
but that was from back in the day. That's the way it was.
For sure. Let's move on. You're in the University of Kentucky, playing for Kentucky. Talk to me about some of the challenges at first when you got to University of Kentucky that you faced, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, the first thing I found out was, man, everybody on that team could play.
Different level.
I mean, it was a whole new level. And I was playing against a guy every day in practice. We played the same position. A guy by the name of Kevin Greavy.
Yep.
Grieve was an All-American. He was unbelievable.
Big mentor for you?
Oh yeah, man. Plus he was a senior at that time when I was a freshman. So I was learning. I mean, I'd never seen a guy shoot the ball like he shot it, man. I mean, I had just never seen anybody as good as Kevin was.
Yep.
But the thing that I found out was he wanted to help me get better.
Good.
We were trying for the same position. I understood he was the man.
Yeah.
I mean, I understood that, accepted it, but he wanted me to challenge him every day.
As it should be.
Like he challenged me.
Yep.
So yeah, and that's one thing that is missed nowadays, because these one and dones, they don't get to experience have the pleasure of being an upperclassman and teaching a younger guy
It would help.
how to play. But they also don't know what it's like learning from a younger guy, older guy. So that was one of the first things I had to understand, was that, man, on this level, it's real. It's real.
One thing that you just talked about, you said the levels are drastically different, and you can see it today in today's game. High school is different from college even today. But you back then, what are some things that were drastically different compared to the game now?
Well, it seemed to me. Now, listen, I understand. I'm an older guy. Okay, and but it seemed to me that basketball at that time was more fundamentally based. And I think one reason is because our high school coaches were basketball people. And that's probably the same today, but with this AAU and all of this extra stuff, they just want to go out and score points.
Yes, especially in AAU. AAU is bad.
And they don't know the right way to go about it. They don't know the fundamental way of stopping your opponent from scoring. So I think one of the things that's really missing, and I see it on this level, and especially being close to the team because I watch a lot of practices and stuff that Coach Cal and now Mark Pope, and I'm sure it'll be a lot the same, but things that they're teaching now are things we learned
way before.
Probably in middle school. Man, I remember Soup Campbell and Richard Green, who I had at Dunbar High School. I remember then that we did box out drills and we did defensive slides and we did all of these things that these coaches are talking to guys about now. And they're in college. We learned that stuff, man.
Early
we knew
on,
what help and recover was. We knew how to step out and screen and play a pick and roll and stop that ball, jam that ball, and stop that guy from turning the corner. I mean, we knew that stuff. These guys have no clue about the basic fundamentals of basketball.
It's true, though. It's very true.
And you know, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast nowadays. And, you know, hopefully they eventually learn it. But I just like the more fundamental base. When dribbling was this, and not this, you know.
I do a lot of that.
Listen, I mean, if we could do that and take 3 or 4 steps between dribbles, man, we would have been pretty darn good.
Yeah, I heard you.
But it's a different game now than it was then, and I understand that, and I'm good with it. But I love the fundamentals that we learned, and we learned day one when we started playing basketball.
When you reflect on your entire college career, Jack, you had so many great moments from winning an NCAA championship, you know, the 41-point game versus Duke. I want to ask you, what are you most proud of?
Well, you got to understand that there are a lot of lessons to be learned from losing. Because as a freshman, we lost the final game to UCLA. And losing that game stuck in our minds. And we knew if we ever got another opportunity, we would be a different team and we would approach it differently. Because those opportunities don't come very often. We won a national championship my sophomore year, the NIT in New York City, which at that time was really big because there were only 32 teams in the NCAA tournament at that time. So there were a bunch of really good teams that didn't make it. So we learned from that. We learned from losing the year before we won the national championship in the finals of the East region. We lost to North Carolina. And after we lost that game, maybe the best team we had when I was at Kentucky, we lost. But when I lost that game, we made a decision at that time that we were going to go to work. All the players stayed in Lexington that summer. We were playing pickup games every day. And we made a decision to focus on nothing else but winning the championship. And a lot of those lessons came from losing, not necessarily winning. But I'm most proud of having a national championship. I think, and I know I had a game that, you know, if you're going to write your script, you would write it to end your college career the same way it happened.
Pretty good ending.
I get that. But I don't know if people remember that had we lost that game. Yeah, you know, it would have been a great game, and man, you were good, but you didn't get a championship.
You got to win it.
Yeah, I mean that's why we're there. So I'm most proud of winning that championship, and that was really, really a good thing.
I ask you, one thing that you just stood out to me. You talked about like your teammates coming back the year after you guys lost, and you're buying in. You guys, we're gonna come back and we're gonna go get that thing. When you got to the NBA, it's a little bit different in the NBA, but how is the team dynamic different from the NBA compared to college? Because college, I feel like it's you're more united in college, right?
Well, it's more of a team in college. In the NBA, it's work. It's business. And we're now getting paid. And while I was happy to learn from Kevin Greavy because he was a senior on the team, and he was happy to teach me, in the NBA, we're teammates. Don't get me wrong, but you're trying to take my job. you try to take my job, man,
Yep.
and that ain't happening. I don't care what you do. So it's I don't want to, maybe to say it's more adversarial is a little bit strong, but it's a business. And I didn't really understand that in time.
Oh, really?
I was when I said everybody in college was good.
Yeah.
Everybody in the NBA is great. I mean, there are no bad players.
Yep.
There might be a guy who is the 12th man on the team,
It's really
and
good.
if he gets to play, it's one of those what I call 30-30 players. And I'm not talking about the 30 for 30 series on yes. I'm talking about some you may not get to play unless you're up 30 or you're down 30. You know,
and those guys were good.
And those guys were great, man.
It's like,
And listen, I lacked confidence because of the talent level. I thought they couldn't get any better than what I went against. But man, I mean, playing against Larry Bird and Dr. J and Bernard King and Kareem and Magic and all the guys I had to play against.
You're naming some tough guys, man.
That is, and I haven't even started John Drew, who I played with the Atlanta Hawks.
Yep.
I mean, John averaged 30-some a game, man, and
Wow.
I saw him many occasions get 50. So if you weren't 100% confident that you belonged there, boy, you weren't going to make it.
For sure.
And that's what happened to me. I wasn't confident. I didn't think I was good enough, and it tore me apart. So, but the NBA was fun. It was great.
Yeah.
The travel was good. You know, in the SEC, you go to Oxford and Starkville, and you go to Tuscaloosa.
Different city every night.
In the NBA, you go to LA, you go to all the New York, Chicago. I mean, traveling was great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was wonderful. But if you didn't manage it right, and understand that's the first time I'd been away from home, basically.
Right,
because I grew up right here, and
local.
if I needed my laundry done, I'd take it to my mom. Yeah. If I needed a good meal, I'd go home for Sunday dinner.
Absolutely.
You know, my grandmother would cook, my mom would cook, and I mean, I was babied. I mean, really, and when it comes to what some people have to go through when they go away,
it's a lot. It's a lot that goes into it. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. So the life of the NBA was difficult. Was tough.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there long enough to grow up and be a man and own it, but the experience was wonderful.
I gotta ask you, Jack, because I'm a huge NBA fan, and you named so many greats that you've played against, and I'm gonna pick your brain. You got to give me, who was the toughest cover that you played against in the NBA?
Man, I mean, and that's really difficult.
Yes, it is.
Because like you heard some of the names.
I did.
I have to, Dr. J.
Yeah. He's from where I'm from. Same city we were born.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
You got some of his skills?
Nah.
Okay, all right. I'm just wanting to hear. I'd say Dr. J could make you look bad quicker than anybody else I played against, because he had a hand that was here, and he handled that ball like a grapefruit. And man, once he elevated,
no stopping.
You couldn't guess what he's going to do with it, because while some guys are holding it with two hands, he held it with one. And if he was anywhere around the basket, because he was 6'8", 6'9", long, he's going to dunk on you. And you could very quickly end up on the wrong end of a poster.
For sure.
No question about that. And Larry Bird could play. I mean, he would tell you what he was going to do.
Big trash talker?
Oh, man, my goodness. Yeah, nobody bigger. But he'd tell you what he was going to do, and he'd go do it.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. Yeah, he talked a lot of trash, but probably the toughest guard for me, guy I had the most trouble with, both college and the NBA, was a guy by the name of Bernard King. Played at Tennessee. Bernard was a scoring machine.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a Hall of Famer right there.
Hall of Famer, and I helped him get there. I don't mind. I don't mind owning up. I mean, I helped him get there. But yeah, man, I tell you, he could score inside, outside, facing the basket, back to the basket. I mean, he was unbelievable what he could do on the offensive end. He was little hard. He was hard to guard because his jump shot, he shoot it on the way up. He wouldn't shoot it at the apex like most guys
shoot
do.
over you.
He would shoot it, and he'd get it off so quick you couldn't time
Contest it.
not that I was going to block a lot of them, but I tried. But he was probably the toughest guy I had to guard.
Yeah. We're going to shift a little bit because I know we're running out of time here, Jack. Overseas, talk to me about, your journey over there. What was it like being able to – you're away from home in the NBA, but now you're going outside the country. This is different. What was that like?
It was tough at first. I mean, I was in Italy first, and just couldn't hang. I mean,
culture shock.
Yeah. Just a whole country and a new language, and you don't know what's going to be on TV, and it was just tough. I mean, it was hard. But it was good because I got to see the country. And then I went to Belgium for a little while, played with the team during the playoffs for them, and had a pretty good time there, but still very short period of time. That was tough. My third stop, and by that time I was getting used to travel, getting used to being away from home, all of that kind of stuff. When I went to Japan, and I played in Japan, and people say, you played in Japan? You played against guys 5'6" and 5'8", and I mean, come on, man. I'm just telling you what people say. I didn't think about it that way, but people think when you say Japan that you get small guys.
Small guys, yeah.
But they were like everywhere else, 6'5" to 7 foot tall. Were everywhere. Yeah. You wouldn't know that, but they are.
Because that's the stereotypical.
Yeah, stereotypical approach to that. But I got with the team. I knew the coach because he had studied at Kentucky my senior year. He was there the whole year. And so I got to know Coach Moto. Kohama was his last name. So I got to be good buddies with him while he was here. So when I finished the NBA and was looking for a place to play, he called me up and asked if I would come there to play and coach with him. I was player coach.
Player coach.
So I decided,
That's cool.
So I went over there, man, and listen, I fell in love with the country.
Really?
The people were wonderful.
Food's good?
The food was awesome. I didn't eat that raw fish now. I didn't eat sushi at that time. I do like some of it now, but I was not going there.
Not back then. You were.
Listen. When you go into a restaurant and then you sit down at a sushi bar, and when the guy you with, he points to a tank that's behind the bar with fish in it, and he says, "I want that one right there," and he picks it out with a net, scoops it out, puts it down on the bar, and he starts filleting that thing up. I just couldn't do it, man. I couldn't bring myself to try it. But the food was great, man. Soba noodles and sukiyaki and all this stuff, man, was so good.
That's awesome.
I got to learn the country. I was there long enough to learn some of the language. So I got to speak a little bit of Japanese. Namae wa nan desu ka?
I don't know.
That means, what is your name?
Okay.
So I got to learn the language, and
that's cool.
The people really appreciated me and what I did. We won a national championship, which is huge in Japan, to win the All Japan League championship. So I won a championship. I was player of the year, most outstanding player in the tournament, and voted player of the year in Japanese basketball. So I had a great time over there, man.
That's awesome,
it was a lot of fun. That experience was unbelievable. I like going back to Japan even today. If I had opportunity. It was wonderful.
It sounds fun. Food, culture, all that sounds great, Jack. Playing to coaching, and now you're color commentating. What was the transition like from just making that overall transition from being a player to now you're a commentator? Everybody knows Jack Gibbons on the radio. What was that like?
Well, I kind of lucked into it, really. I mean, I'd finished playing ball. I was here in Lexington. State tournament time rolls around. And one day I get a call from Ralph Hacker at WVLK Radio.
Right.
And Ralph says, hey, would you like to do some state tournament games?
Cool.
And I'm thinking, do what with state tournament games? What do you mean? And he said, well, would you like to broadcast some of the games?
Yeah.
You'll be working with Dick Gabriel. You'll work with me some. You'll be working with Rick Shaw, some of those kind of guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So I said, yeah, I think that would be fun.
That's cool.
So I started doing high school games. Moved up. We went from there to start doing, we did some Transylvania games,
Cool.
did some games for Transy, Dick Gable and I.
Yeah.
So, and Dick was a great guy to learn from. He taught me the ropes. And so we got into that, and I continued to grow a little bit, got into college, some of the regional broadcasts. Actually, first I got into the University of Kentucky Basketball Network, broadcasting games on TV.
Network, yeah.
Broadcasting games on TV, and we would record the games regular time during the games, and they would, you're too young to know this, but they would come back and play those games at 11:30 at night.
Oh, wow.
After the local news. And the real
I didn't know they used to do that.
yeah, man, and the real good thing was could people, and they tried every way they could they avoid the score of the game so it would seem as though they were watching the game live.
Live, right.
Yeah,
right,
so
right.
The news would say,
That's
here's the score. They put it up. We're getting ready to announce the score of the game. If you don't want to know, you go away.
You don't look.
Don't look. So people would leave, and they would watch the games as though they were live. So that's how I got started. And from there, I got with NBC and CBS doing games. I did tournament games. All the way up. Didn't do any Final Four games, but I did regional games and college games. Then I got with the Atlanta Hawks, started doing NBA games, and then from there I got with Turner Sports. So I was doing TNT games on TNT and TBS, and
so cool.
So it's been a great progression. But now that I'm back to Lexington, I mean, you're talking about writing a script and it playing out the way you would write it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm right back where I started, and I couldn't be any happier.
That's a story. That's a story.
Really
man.
fun.
I want to ask you before we let you go. I got a few quick questions, man. Without all your success, on the court, off the court, color commentating, radio, without all of it, who is Jack Givens the person? Like, who is that? Who's Jack without all that?
Well, I would like to think that had I not gone down the path I went down with the career, the basketball career, which opens the door to a lot of other opportunities. Yeah. I would like to think I'd still figure out a way to be successful. I mean, I've got there are 10 kids, man. My younger brother is a chief of police here in Lexington. He's a great role model. My sisters have been nurses, and my youngest sister, she owns a business where she provides security to the schools.
Everybody's doing something.
The officers. My brother Anthony is a pastor and a jack of all trades kind of guy. I'm my brother Mike. I mean, I could go on and on and on with the success. One went to the service. I mean, there were a lot of opportunities if you looked for them. So I would like to think I would still have found a way to be successful one way or the other. Yeah. One person's success story is not the same as somebody else, but that's who I like to think I am. I would love to have gotten where I am today with my family, the same family I have, my wife and my kids and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I look back and I probably wouldn't change anything, but I think the Lord would have made a way for me one way or the other. And that's just kind of the way I think about it.
What I just noticed is it's the ambition. This is the ambition.
Yeah, you got to want to do something, for sure.
I like that. I like that, man. Last two questions I always ask my guests here on What's Next podcast. Give your best advice, and then we close out with what's next. So let me start with this. Well, what's your best advice to anyone? This can be anybody, looking to play basketball or anyone in general. What does Jack Givens have to say to them?
Well, I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I love kids. I love young athletes, young people in general, kids who want to learn, who, uh, and I use them, and I say the same thing to business people, adults, who might be doing whatever they're doing. And when I was with the Orlando Magic, people knew me as much or more as they knew the players until Shaquille O'Neal got there, and then everybody knew Shaq. But so I did a lot of speaking engagements on behalf of the team,
Cool.
To kids and youth groups and church groups and everything.
Right,
so
right.
what I came up with, and I'm not going to go into it because we're running out of time, but I came up with what I call the magic of success. And I would do the same speech wherever I went. And I use the 5 letters in magic, MAGIC.
Okay.
M is motivation.
Correct.
Like you just said, ambition, you got to have it.
Yeah.
A is attitude. If you have a positive attitude, and especially for kids, if you have a positive attitude, you can do whatever you want. Next thing is goal setting. You got to set your goals high. Reach for those goals. Don't be satisfied with being mediocre. So many kids are satisfied with getting C's when you and I both know they could get A's. The I in magic is I can, because if you don't believe in yourself,
good luck.
Nobody's going to believe it.
Good luck.
So motivation, attitude, set your goals high, goal setting. I can, and then the C is a Christ-like attitude. If you go about what you're going to do, understanding that there's someone that has more power than you do and is in control of your life more than you are. If you understand that, and if you treat people the way you want to be treated, you're going to be successful. Mm-hmm. So I'd speak to the magic of success, and that's what I would tell any kid, anybody that I'm talking about.
That's great advice, Jack. Thank you for sharing that, man. What's next? What you got coming up next? I know you got Carmichael's tomorrow.
I got a lot of
signing event.
Got a lot of book signings coming up, man. We got this thing, and I've been totally shocked with the success of it. It's already going into second printing, particularly the hardback covers.
It's a big deal.
I mean, it's been amazing. I mean, I thought nobody would be interested in anything I had to say. But yeah, we have Carmichael's in Louisville on Frankfurt Avenue tomorrow. But I also have signings in Hazard, Kentucky, Ashland, Kentucky. I'm going next week down to Sarasota, Florida. I've got a signing. I've got a tour. Going to hit Texas later in the summer, where I'm going to Dallas and going to Houston, and then Austin for a signing. I'm going to San Diego, man, for a signing. Cool. I'm up in Northern Kentucky for the University of Kentucky Alumni Association up there.
Shout out
Cincinnati
to those guys.
Northern Kentucky alumni is coming up in a week or so, a couple of weeks. So I've got a lot of stuff going on when it comes to this book.
It's a great book.
I'm really, really pleased with it, and appreciate you showing it off.
Of course, man. I'm excited to read it. I've heard a lot of good things. And Drew Franklin was telling me a lot about this book as well. So
thanks.
I'm excited to read it and give it a try, man. But it's been a pleasure having you on. I want to thank you, hand you your flowers. Honored to be sitting across from you, getting to pick your brain a little bit.
It's nice to be here.
Of course. And I want to thank the Old North Bar and Kitchen for letting us use
absolutely.
Use
Beautiful
this
place here.
Beautiful place. You guys make sure you guys check them out as well. Jack, that's all we got for today, man. It's been a pleasure. Before you go, man, I'm gonna have you sign my copy.
I will do it.
I definitely need that. Camera ready. Awesome. Camera cut. Oh no. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it, man. Sorry that took so long. I was getting lost in the conversation.
No problem, man.
Thank you.
Yep.